Darth Vader, masquerading as the Jedi Padawan Anakin Skywalker, landed on Tatooine with the young Obi-Wan Kenobi. By bringing Obi-Wan along with him, and not simply leaving in the night totally unbeknownst to anyone, Vader would be able to save his mother from the Tusken Raiders while preserving his reputation with Obi-Wan, and by extension his reputation with the Jedi Council, ensuring that he would be able to have the same chance to court Padme Amidala that he had had when he originally was assigned to be her guardian. The hateful, dark side-imbued rage within Vader surged under the surface ferociously and potently as he came closer to a chance to save his mother from the animals that had slaughtered her in his original timeline, like magma deep under a dormant volcano, undetectable from the outside. While Vader was allowing a certain amount of rage to surface, Obi-Wan was unable to detect the full extent of Vader's dark emotions. If Vader were to act totally devoid of wrath, it would not be in keeping with his character of the well-intentioned but brash and often emotionally unhinged youth that Anakin Skywalker was. Vader and Obi-Wan ran across the desert sand in a Force-induced sprint to get on board some speeders. "Anakin, listen to me. We will do everything we can to save your mother, but do not allow your rage to control your actions," Obi-Wan said as they each got on their speeders. "You think too little of me, Master, although your wisdom is appreciated. That is another reason why I asked you to accompany me." Obi-Wan gave a concerned and caring glance at Anakin before looking forward at the desert horizon. "You're sure that in your vision you saw the destination of the camp?" Vader nodded. "I'm certain." In actuality, Vader simply remembered where she was from when he had originally gone after her. Thankfully, now there would be no need to waste a moment talking to that cowardly buffoon Klieg Lars to discover the exact whereabouts of his mother. Knowing her exact destination through a vision of the Force, although not exactly true, was the perfect excuse to use to go straight after her. It was in the morning by the time they arrived on Tatooine, and it would be late afternoon by the time they would arrive at the camp. Vader remembered the cliff overlooking the camp of savages that he had taken back when he had attempted to save his mother and failed. "I can sense her. My mother is down there," Vader said aloud, Obi-Wan nodding in agreement. "I sense her too." Last time, it was night, and the Tusken Raiders were mostly in their tents or resting around their campfires, making infiltration of the camp seamless. This time, the Tusken Raiders were lively and out and about, but he and Obi-Wan had already planned for that on the way to Tatooine. Now, we need to be quick and precise, yet tread very lightly if we are to successfully lure two of them away. Now, I know we have already discussed this, but we should do our best to avoid violence. And if violence is unavoidable, we should do our best to avoid any loss of life if we can. Please, Anakin, promise me this." Vader looked over at Obi-Wan and nodded. "Of course, Master." Obi-Wan looked down, thinking of whatever other words of wisdom or consolation he could share with his apprentice. "And Anakin." By the time Obi-Wan looked up to where his apprentice had been, he had already jumped off the cliff, cushioning his fall with the Force. "I hate it when he does that." Obi-Wan followed suit and hid next to Vader behind some rocks near the camp. Vader spotted two Tusken Raiders standing outside the tent where he could sense his mother was located. "She's in there." Obi-Wan nodded. Obi-Wan used a Jedi mind trick on the two Tusken Raiders to have them believe there was something interesting to look at in the opposite direction of where Anakin and Obi-Wan were headed. As they turned their heads, Obi-Wan and Vader snuck up behind the two guards and knocked them unconscious, quickly dragging them behind the rocks. Emerging from the rocks, disguised as Tusken Raiders and holding their staves, they made their way to the tent where Shmi was in. Vader's heart beat within him, in the fear of what state his mother would be in as they entered the tent. The sight of seeing Shmi tied up against that same barbaric wooden frame immediately caused Vader's fear and rage to skyrocket. having trouble trying to hide the full extent of his emotions from Obi-Wan. Yes, he had relived this nightmare countless times over, but this was different. For as he had observed before, the likelihood that this was all an extended nightmare or simulation was slim. Yet this immediate knee-jerk emotional reaction immediately started to lessen in pressure as he recognized that this time his mother was standing up, looking at them. Yes, she still had fresh scratches and bruises on her body, and she clearly had suffered at the hands of those animals. But the color was still in her skin. She was not pale in moments from death as when he had originally found her, arriving several days later in that time. But this time, arriving several days prior, his mother was still very much alive. Her eyes were full of fear as she looked upon what she thought to be the Tusken Raiders coming back to torment her. Vader's eyes were full of tears, hidden from the view of Obi-Wan and his mother, as he did his best to contain himself. He could feel through the Force that this was indeed his mother. There is no way Vader could conceive of that some sort of simulation could replicate the very real sense of his mother before him that he could feel in the Force. Obi-Wan lightly touched Vader's arm to remind him to keep his composure and to stick with the plan, as he could sense the powerful emotions within his apprentice and could see that he was standing there motionless for nearly an entire minute. Vader regained his composure and walked forward and whispered to Shmi, "Mom, it's me, Anakin, your son. Stay quiet, we are getting you out of here." Shmi's eyes lighted up with confusion and wonder as Vader freed her from her restraints. "Wait a moment while Obi-Wan makes sure the way is clear," Vader whispered to his mother as Obi-Wan nodded, stepping outside the tent and standing guard. A few Tusken Raiders were walking around, looking at their massive hounds fighting over some bones, and it was clear the tent was in their line of sight. As one of the mastiffs shook the bone in its mouth ferociously, he used the Force to cause that bone to slip out of its mouth and collide with the shins of one of the Tusken Raiders far from Shmi's tent. Several mastiffs all ravenously fought for the bone at the foot of the Tusken Raider, who kicked at them from the pain of the bone impacting his shin. This little scene of chaos was just enough to catch the attention of all the Tusken Raiders in the area, allowing for Obi-Wan, Vader, and Shmi to escape her tent unnoticed. Vader instructed his mother to wrap her arms around his neck as he and Obi-Wan scaled the cliff quickly. Once upon the top of the cliff and far out of sight of the Tusken Raiders, Vader and Obi-Wan removed their masks. "Annie, it really is you." Tears streamed down Vader's face, and there was no need for acting, for these were very much real. "You're safe now, Mom. I'm never going to let anything happen to you. You'll always be safe from now on." He and his mother embraced. "I'm so sorry. I didn't come to you sooner." Vader said this partially referring to the fact that in his original timeline, Vader was too late to save his mother. If Vader had a chance to start his entire life over, he would never have left her in the first place. He would never leave her for the empty, hollow, and vain life of a Jedi. He would stay by her side and protect her. Yet now, he did not need to fantasize about what could have been, because his mother truly was standing before him alive. Feeling his mother's embrace, he felt more certain than ever that this was real. When they made their way back to Klieg Lar's residence, Vader insisted that for the time being, Shmi would need to be brought back to Coruscant so that she could be protected, and was able to convince Klieg and his family that if they wanted to stay with Shmi, they would need to join her on Coruscant. This was not negotiable, and trying to argue or bargain with Darth Vader was a nigh impossible task, regardless if he was in disguise as the young Anakin and did not have his imposing black suit. As they all boarded the ship with Vader and Obi-Wan, Vader felt a feeling he had not felt this strongly in years. Fear. Fear that now he actually had something to lose. It was fear that drove him to the dark side in an attempt to receive the power he needed to save what he feared losing, which drove him to tapping into his rage to fuel that power. Then, when he lost everything he was afraid of losing, all that was left was that rage, that hatred, which is what quite literally sustained his life force through the power of the dark side of the Force. When Vader initially embraced the dark side, his fear and rage ran rampant and out of control, and like a fire through a forest, led to the destruction of everything he loved. This time, Vader was wiser. He would not deny his fear, like the callous and apathetic Jedi had counseled him to do. He would embrace his fear, his rage, his hatred, along with his attachment to his mother and to Padme, but this time he would hone that fire and channel it with expert precision to truly save his loved ones. Now that the short-term and immediate needs were taken care of, saving his mother and Padme, he needed to have a long-term plan to protect his mother and Padme. And that would mean he needed to figure out a way to deal with his former master. Not Obi-Wan. He was of little concern. But Darth Sidious, masquerading as the benevolent Senator Palpatine. He would need to plan for how to beat Sidious at his own game, that of using the power of the dark side to pull the strings and stand triumphant over his enemies while remaining undetected. Anakin awoke in what seemed to be water. Was this a dream? He looked around. He seemed to be in some sort of transparent container. No, this wasn't water. This is a Bacta tank. This did not seem like a dream. What happened? Did he get injured in his sleep and then get placed in here in an attempt to save his life? Anakin tried to get a look at the rest of his body to see what injuries he may have sustained. Panic took over him as he realized he was missing both legs and both arms. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed. And I just want to clarify that that last part is Anakin waking up in Darth Vader's body. This is not a thing where like, oh, it was a dream the whole time. No. Because Darth Vader swapped places with Anakin, right? So while Darth Vader is going through Anakin's body from Attack of the Clones, guess what? That means Anakin from Attack of the Clones is in Darth Vader's body. So that's what that last paragraph is addressing. And so I finally got around to getting into that part of the story, and I will expound upon that in the next part. And so thank you for watching. Thank you so much for your kind words, your kind comments. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And I want to say moving forward that I'm going to be posting more consistently. So look forward to that. And make sure that when you are subscribed, you press the subscribe button again, and then you press which notifications do you want, and you press all notifications so you can see everything that your boy Random View comes out with. Okay? All right, everyone. Much love, much peace, and God bless you all. And I will see you in part 4.